earlier this month I hosted a live stream in which I designed a group of intelligent aliens. The basic idea was to have two species, one with human-level intelligence but limited dexterity, meaning they couldn't use tools, and a second group that could use tools but was far less intelligent. This would lead to the first group domesticating and using the second group to build and farm for them. By the end of the stream, we had these basic designs. The intelligent group, called the Harlows, were these small elephant snail things, while the tool users, called the Junes, were these towering horse creatures. Then, after the stream, with the help of my Discord server, we began world building, which we'll get into now, actually. So basically, Harlows originally evolved as borderline parasitic. Due to their size difference, a fully grown Harlow could easily pass off as a baby June, which meant they could hide in the June nests and get taken care of by the mothers, at least until their babies grew up. But unfortunately, Junes only reproduce once a year during an established mating season, so the Harlow's parasitic lifestyle was only viable for a couple of months. With this as an evolutionary pressure, the Harlows began evolving toward an actual symbiotic relationship with the Junes. In exchange for the protection and hunting prowess offered by the Junes, the Harlows would help by eating any parasitic bugs, tending to a June's injuries, and acting as lookouts in the night. Over time, the Harlows grew more intelligent until this symbiotic relationship shifted into a process of domestication as they reached human-level sapience. This newfound intelligence eventually led to the implementation of language, not only verbal, but written. Verbal in quotes, however, since they actually spoke with a form of sign language, using their eye stalks and trunks to convey ideas. As for the written language, I figured they probably wouldn't write linearly the way that we do, since they have 4 eyes, all of which move independently and offer 360 degrees of vision, which means they could probably see and read an entire page at once. Instead, I developed a radial writing system, where each ring represents one word. To read it, you'd start at the center and move out. These written languages led to the mass transportation of knowledge, spreading the Harlow's newly found agricultural revolution. With agriculture comes job specialization, and more people could spend more time breeding new, distinct June variants. Many breeds looked basically the same, like farmhand Junes, which were just bigger and stronger so they could plow fields and build fence. But others were bred with more extreme modifications, like the blacksmithing June, whose eye stalks had receded completely into its skull so they would be far less likely to be blinded by flying sparks. They were also given heat-dispensing fins to act as ventilation in the scorching furnace rooms. Many others were bred for food production, but not in the way you might expect. You see, Junes feed their young in the same way as a bird, by spitting half-eaten meals into their babies' mouths. And due to the Harlow's evolutionary past, many young Harlows grew up eating from mother Junes in this same way. This made June bile a beloved and nostalgic meal in Harlow society, to the point that many Junes were bred to produce sweeter saliva and, by extension, a better tasting bile. During this time, it was customary for a baby Harlow and a baby June to be assigned to one another at birth, resulting in a deep, lifetime bond between the two. In many ways, this was an incredibly efficient system, since the two groups had nearly identical birth rates, producing a litter of 2 or 3 babies every year. But on the other hand, it was kinda heartbreaking, since Harlows lived for 20 years, while Junes could often reach 40. Because of this, many Junes would live the latter half of their life mourning the death of their best friend, and these widowers, as they were called, would often be bought up by the local breeders, who needed a large number of Junes for their business. But regardless of its depressing aftermath, this process of lifelong bonding led to a popular folktale and eventually a full-on religion. The story goes that in the beginning, Junes were the intelligent species of the planet, but after some divine judgment, their mind and soul were taken from their body and given corporeal form as the Harlows. This dichotomy was believed to exist in all things, such as the stars above being the soul of their planet. And of course, it was believed that a Harlow was the soul of their respective June, which made these birth ceremonies in which the two were bonded incredibly meaningful events. But all things must come to an end, and eventually some form of the steam engine was created. This ushered a new age in which most Harlows lived a life of factory work rather than living on a farm. While there were June breeds capable of factory work, it actually proved more cost-effective to have the Harlows do it instead. You see, a blacksmithing June, for example, doesn't just know how to blacksmith. It's trained to do it, but it needs a master to command them through every step. Expanding this to a factory full of workers, the business owners would not only need to house the Junes, but also pay the masters for their time, which proved to be a bigger cost than the Harlows' limited dexterity. Over time, this led to less and less Harlows owning their own personal Junes. The only people that did were farmers, owners of construction companies, breeders, and the government, who used them as a military and police force. There were a few exceptions, but the vast majority of Harlows were completely Juneless. And hey, remember that religion almost entirely based around the spiritual bond between a Harlow and June? Well, it was still a pretty common belief, but now most of its followers have been born into a world in which June ownership seemed nearly impossible. This unbalanced power dynamic and the civil unrest it caused eventually boiled over into a religious revolution, in which the citizens fought back against their oppressive government, and while they did win the war, they kinda sucked at governing themselves. And since this whole revolution was founded on a vague belief and not much else, all it took was a charismatic leader weaponizing those beliefs, and before you know it, they're living in an authoritarian police state again. This new world power, which we can call the Order of Body and Mind, had a hyperfixation on space colonization, since, as mentioned before, they believed the cosmos were the soul of their planet, and exploring it was akin to a holy pilgrimage. This fixation led to massive steps in technology, and in the span of just a few generations, they had discovered nuclear fission, developed rocket science, and founded colonies on several of their planet's moons. However, while this regime was great for scientific discovery and technological advancement, its oppressive nature produced brutal living conditions for its citizens, and eventually there was another revolution. This one somehow went way worse than the first time, ending in nuclear Armageddon, with countless atomic bombs setting off on the planet's surface, killing almost everybody. Everybody but those on the moon colonies, who were left unscathed. And with this, Harlow civilization would continue not on their home planet, but in the cosmos above. From here, my idea of their future gets a little fuzzy, but I like to imagine them eventually meeting humanity and the two groups completely misreading each other. Humans would see the Junes as these dexterous, almost humanoid creatures that are actually building and manipulating their environment, and probably assume they're the intelligent species. Then the Harlows would see humanity doing what they consider to be June jobs and assume they were the workers of some other, more intelligent being. Personally, I like the idea of the Harlows assuming cats or dogs are the sapient species. Then, due to their vastly different languages, it would be forever until this misunderstanding was ever cleared up. So those are the broad strokes, but my Discord server also developed a lot of other aspects to the world building that I couldn't really slot cleanly into place. Specifically, they got really specific about their language, deciding that they mostly spoke with two eyes at a time, with their frontmost eyes being used for casual conversation, while their back eyes were more formal or stern. A mother might threaten her child with "don't make me use my upper eyes," for example. They could also use all four eyes at once, but this was considered really elaborate, flowery, and difficult to understand, sort of like Shakespearean English. But Meep was the real MVP in this aspect since he wrote an entire dictionary full of eye stalk and trunk positions. But I also want to mention Solomon, since she made these really cool 3D models of the Harlows and Junes. By the way, they're called that since my community had originally named them Harold and George, so I wanted to give them actual alien names that still sounded similar. But yeah, this is far from the last time I plan on making a video like this, so if you want to be involved the next time I do it, then I'd recommend joining my Discord server and subscribing to my channel, so you'll be notified when I start the next alien stream. Links in the description. And until next time, don't die. See you later.